Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Yellowjackets, a great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with everything in the past. Let's pick up after their doomsday party and everything. Everyone's kind of waking up from their shroom-induced mania, and it's just kind of like, okay, everyone's just like, no one says anything. You're just seeing everyone wake up. Shauna picks up the knife because she says later on, like, she doesn't remember. Oh, she does. And you can tell, and it's something like I said before, like some hallucinogenics. There's this thing of like, right, you want to be careful because at least some thoughts are like, once you do that, it unlocks parts of your brain that you can never shut down again. It awakened a little bit of darkness in them. They're in the environment where a lot of those animalistic side, those darker natures, those darker instincts inside of them are already there, and it's just bubbling. This is the hotbed for it. So this is the worst situation you want to be in, where you're vulnerable, you're lost, you're afraid. Like all these emotions and just all these complications are going to drive the darker instincts inside of you, and those mushrooms just happen to like crack that open in everybody, you know? I mean, at the very least, Thaisa and Van were a part of that, but they did, like, leave and bang it out elsewhere, so I don't blame them as much, but at the end of the day, they still were as much a part of it. They just kind of went their own way. Obviously, like, Natalie's with Travis, and he's like, he ends up admitting what him and Jackie did, but she was like, I don't care about that. I just want to know you're okay. And obviously, he's looking for Javi, because the last time we saw him was the last episode when Shauna told him to run, and he did. He was high too, so no telling how far he went, because he most likely got lost and can't find his way back, because it was at night when he was running too, so probably doesn't have a really good sense of location, because he's someone that hasn't really strayed away from the group, so like whenever they've done something, he's always just stayed behind, so he's definitely out there potentially lost. And so Travis goes to look for him, but with no luck, and he doesn't want Natalie involved, because it's more so like shame towards what he did, because he's like, right, like, despite, like, she might not be a virgin, but the thing is, at the end of the day, he loves her, and he feels like he betrayed her by having sex with Jackie, but also, I think there is a part of him that probably wanted his first time to be with Natalie, to be with someone he loved, rather than it just being some meaningless thing, because it's like, right, Jackie just wanted to bang it out. It's not like there was ever anything there, you know? So I think that's the real heartbreaking element to it. But later on, when he can't find Javi, he is there with Natalie, and he's just like, I love you, Natalie, and I'm sorry. Because at first he's like, I don't want your help, but it's like, he feels so guilty, and it's just like, it's almost like, I don't deserve your help after, like, I screwed up like that. I made such a mistake. I was being stupid. I'm so sorry. But she just hugs him, and I thought that was kind of a beautiful moment. Once again, it always breaks your heart, because no matter whether they're good or bad, when they're bad, it breaks your heart, because you're not like, man, like, we already know that over the next 25 years, they had a roller coaster of a relationship on and off. The way Thaisa talked about it, there were so many ups and downs that they were actually really bad for each other. But to see moments like that, it makes you go, damn, he's dead, you know? So they couldn't just be okay and in a good spot. But even then, when they're in a good spot, it just makes you go, damn, no matter what, you know what his future holds for him, that he's gone. So that's always going to be the heartbreaking thing about those scenes between Natalie and Travis. Ups and downs, it's all going to be, like, heartbreaking. Just, yeah, that's always going to be nagging in the back of your mind no matter what. Yep, we know what Travis's future is in 25 years, you know, so. But, obviously, it all came to a head about, like, you know, right, we were all on mushrooms. Let's not, like, because Jackie was, like, chewing everyone out, especially Shauna, for what she did. She's like, I can't believe you guys did that. It's like, it's not, you know, it's like, right. He's like, let's just take a deep breath. We're all high on shrooms. They're like, shrooms? Like, wait. And it's like, oh, of course. Oh, the soup. And then they turn to Misty, you poisoned? She was like, no, that was meant for Ben. And it's like, because Mari's the one that took them. It was like, I didn't mean that for everyone else. That's the thing, though. At any point in time, Misty, you could have been like, hey, those are my shrooms, give them back. But you didn't want to take the chance that if you told people that, you would lose your opportunity to get close to Ben, which he made it pretty clear. She definitely remembers, because she didn't get high last night. She definitely remembers him opening up and to be like, I have a boyfriend named Paul. I'm gay. I'm super gay. And I even love, she's like, this is his fault for making me fall in love with him in the first place. I love it. It's like, because I'm sure that's probably going to, because I talked about it before, that I think that's going to be one of the things Misty, like, because Misty, like him doing what he did was pretty much him catfishing her, because it's like, oh, I pretend like I'm in love with you. It's like, no, it's just, well, it's the 90s, so it's not really the safest time to come out. I mean, obviously Taissa and Van are in their situation, but it's like, Paul's not comfortable enough. I mean, not Paul, but Ben's not comfortable enough coming out. And so, and also it's like he knows how unhinged Misty is. So he's like, all right, I'll placate you a little bit. As long as I'm not doing anything, it's fine. But for her, it's just kind of like, right, she thought she found someone who liked her, cared about her, was super nice to her, sweet to her. She poured her heart out, was kind of really, you know, she really was in love with him. And then just to find out, not only do you not love me, you're not even attracted to me. So it's not even a thing of, I can eventually make you love me. It's like, no. That could be the sad, twisted thing where she's like, no, who cares if you're gay? Like, how do we know if you're really gay? Like, I can make you straight. Like, Missy's fucking crazy. You don't know what I wouldn't put it past her because she's that fucking nuts, but who knows? I think a lot of those feelings, I'd said previously, I think a lot of those feelings harboring, like him finding out that he's gay, is going to set her off. Like, she's going to use that as ammunition to, like, be pissed at him, and that's going to lead to some stuff later on. Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see, but aside from all of that, like, there was that bear rolling up, and then Lottie, just calm as hell, just walks over. I was like, are you about to just, like, straight up kill that bear? And then the moment the bear kind of knelt down to her, I was like, oh, I guess it's okay. Oh, nope, you stabbed it, and you killed it, and now you actually have food. But that's also the thing, too, because now this starts snowballing into a big effect where, like, Van has got a little talisman around her neck again, and Taissa's almost like, wait, come down. She's like, no, you're not going to talk me out of this. Like, when I died, like, I wasn't fully dead, but I wasn't alive. I saw something out there in the woods with her, and Taissa's so dismissive, which I'm like, I think it's, once again, Taissa in her defense mechanism is like, let's not lean into the supernatural stuff. I think all that stuff when she was a little girl with her grandma, the guy with, like, no eyes and stuff like that, I think that freaked her out, and now she's just like, no, that's crazy talk. I'm not going to believe all that, just because it's easier not to believe it, because I think she's trying to rationalize everything, because once again, by being like, no, this is realistic, there's nothing crazy, nothing supernatural, she's able to keep control, and that's her only way to kind of keep herself sane to some extent. Obviously, we've seen the cracks with her blacking out, so, which, once again, we've only seen bits and pieces of that. Based on what she said to Shauna, she's like, you know how bad that can get. I brought it up then, and I think I'm going to continue that thought process now, is that it's going to get even worse from here on out, that we're going to see how those blackouts escalate and how bad they really can get. Because so far all she did was climb up a tree and eat some, and prior to that was eat some dirt. So it's like, you know, there has to be more to it, especially with some of the present day stuff showing like how really escalated that can get. But we'll talk about that when we talk about the present day stuff. So, but boy, oh boy, like, I love that it's like, right, Taissa doesn't want to lose Van, so she's kind of like, sure, we'll make this work, you know. It's like, because Van's starting to believe in there being something more, because even, like, Taissa's like, that's not you, but she's like, no, but what if it is me? And it's like, cool, I get it, you're like, you don't want to rock the boat, it's like, you love Van, and you don't want to ruin things are good right now, so, but things are changing, even to the point, like, during their little prayer or whatever, like, you can see, like, Van opens her eyes, and Lottie opens her eyes too, and they look at each other, and she says, thank you, because it was like, she wasn't just thinking the gods, you know, the ancient gods in the sky and the dirt that they were praying to and thanking the bear and all of that. It was also, she was thinking Lottie in particular, because it's like, right, you are a guide, which, once again, I love that this all happened because of Laura Lee. Now, to be fair, this all started because Lottie was already, once again, she I think at the end of the day, it's just lucky. I think it's just like, I think the whole point is that Lottie is schizophrenic, but she believes what she's seeing is so real. Which, yeah, there's some truth to it. It's just life is coincidentally working out like this, because we know that her mom believed there was something more. Her dad was the one that was like, nah. So her mom might have festered some of that, why she believes what she believes, and it took Laura Lee pointing her, especially because Lottie's been without her medication for a while. So who knows how this whole thing would have played out if Lottie was still on her meds. But I didn't think it was like a thing of like, oh, she's like divine and stuff like that. It was like, no, I think it is just, it's just pure coincidence. It all just happens to work out. I think Taissa was right, but I think it's also, maybe there is just, I mean, you know, with getting a little hippy dippy, maybe you can be like, there is some energy there. Like, whether it's like a full blown, like, oh, there's supernatural stuff happening in those woods. It's like, no, but maybe there's been a lot of death, a lot of potential, like, cult related sacrifices or something in that woods that is like, there's a little bit of a darkness to those woods that has kind of seeped into their sanity. It's like, right, when you're lost, you're hungry, you're afraid, like I said, all these rushing emotions, of course, is going to, like, play and lean into the darker elements of yourself. So I think that's just all this is. But like I said, Laura Lee kind of funneled that in the wrong direction, and sadly she's not around to kind of actually probably lean. I don't know, because if she was still around, she'd probably end up being a Lottie follower for all we know, because like she believes Lottie to be special in the grand scheme of things. And once again, like a lot of her premonitions and stuff seem to have been kind of on point. But like I said, I think it's just like, I don't know, a clock is right. A broken clock is right twice a day, right? So, you know, she's just batting a higher average. I mean, it could also just be like, once again, you have something like, I'm a reference Psych, because I referenced it previously with the theme songs and stuff like that. Sean Spencer is super observant. Like, what if that's what Lottie's thing is? Like, yeah, she might be schizophrenic, but also she has pretty good perception, so that maybe she's picking up on things to some extent. Once again, a lot of that could just be lucky guesses. Subconsciously, she knows certain things, like, just in a sense of, like, right, she's smart enough to know certain things, and maybe she saw the river of, like, river running red before, and it just didn't stick in her mind, but now she's presenting it like it's a prophecy when in actuality it isn't. I don't know. Maybe the show will be like, nah, you dummy, we are really dealing with supernatural stuff. I don't think that's it at all. I think it is just like, Lottie's crazy, and she's just, let's not use the word crazy. Legitimately, medically speaking, I do believe she's schizophrenic, and she's just seeing and hearing stuff that isn't really there, and it just happens to manifest and just coincide with like some stuff that's really happening. But what I love is that the moment they were doing a little prayer, Jackie didn't join in, and Misty had to be the snitch, because I love it that Misty was losing her way, because like, especially Mari was like, oh, like, we'd ever trust you with the food, and she's like, I'm just trying to help, and it's like, no one wants you here, so like, fuck off, Misty. And she looks around, no one's there. It's like, yeah, everyone's super pissed at you about it. Once again, the sad thing is, Misty loves being special. She wants to find her place. And the fact is, she thought she did, because once again, episode 2, she was the superstar. She was rocking. But then slowly over time, she's falling more and more to the wayside, you know? And Ben was the only person she had left to latch onto. Now she knows that's going kaputs, because, oh, he's gay. He has no interest in me at all. He's not in love with me, even though I'm in love with him. So all of that is going to make her feel like, no, I got to do something. I got to step up even more. I got to be special in some regard. I got to win everyone back over to some extent. Like, I want to feel special. I want to be special, because she's always been a background character. She wants to be the main character of the story, you know? Which that whole conversation leads to the big old match of words between Jackie and Shauna, where like Jackie calls Shauna out. It's like, you know what you did? And she's like, I don't remember. It's like, oh. She's like, yeah, but this is all your fault because I stole someone's man? Oh, you really about to go there, Shauna? Shauna slept with Jeff behind my back, and everyone's like, yo. I even love Ben finding out about the orgy. He's like, wait, what? Because of course you were like blitzed out of your mind with Natalie at the time, so you didn't know what was really going on here. But it's like, you were going to kill him. Because we even saw it earlier, like Shauna, when she was cutting up the bear, she was about to lick the blood, and then Akilah was like, whoa, Shauna, don't do that. You'll make yourself sick. Once again, it's like, it's something in her, like, awoken in that moment. I think we'll see that more and more, but it plays in very nicely with the present day stuff of this episode. But the exchanging of words are like, how can you do this? You were my best friend. And then Shauna went off on her, dude, and being like, it was a lot of what I thought as much. It's just like, no, like, I'm not really your friend. Like, everything, you make so many decisions, who I should sleep with, what I should do. Like, I don't even like soccer. I'm here because I kind of got dragged along by you. And she's talking about how, oh, I'm sorry you have to live in my shadow. And she's like, no, I'm not jealous of you, Jackie. Because she's like, oh, you got to be so jealous of me. It's like, no, I'm not jealous of you, Jackie. I feel sorry for you. Like, all those people back home must be like, oh, like, our Princess Jackie, like, they're so scared and worried about you. But it's like, at the end of the day, they don't know how, like, pathetic and essentially weak you are. And you're like, yo! And Jackie was like, get out of here. Which I was like, oh, I think that's funny how you're telling her to get out. And then she's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. That sounds like a you problem that you don't want to be around me. Shauna was like, how about you leave? And then she's almost looking around like, can you believe her, guys? And everyone's like, no one's saying anything. And then Thais said the last thing, I was like, no, Jackie, don't go. She's like, oh, shut up. Like, this isn't what you always wanted anyway. You know, it's just right. You know, I thought I knew you, Shauna. You know, I don't know what happened to you. You're not who I thought you were. It's like, maybe you never knew who I was in the first place. Because I also love that the fact is, the sad thing is, it hit Jackie because it is so true. Because it is that thing of, whether Jackie realizes it or not, she kept Shauna around because Shauna was kind of her yes person. Like, anything she did, like, that's why she took it so hard when, like, it felt like, oh, like, you don't agree with me, you're siding with other people. That's why she took it as such a personal attack in the past. It's because it's like, Shauna was her yes person, like her wing person. It's like, no, you agree with me, right? Like, we're the same. Like, Jackie was feeling some void in her of herself, the same thing with Shauna. And Shauna was just, you know, it's like, Shauna even said, like, right, we're all extras in the story that is you. But I also love that no one stuck up for Jackie, because truth be told is, I think legitimately everyone only tolerated Jackie because of Shauna. Because Shauna was always that buffer between Jackie and everyone else. Because, once again, Van, who knows if Van ever completely forgave her for, yeah, you did leave me for dead. Yeah, you saved me for the plane, but even then you had to ask me, are we good? You know, you wouldn't have to worry about us being good if you hadn't decided to try and save Shauna and yourself rather than trying to help me. But Shauna wanted to say and help me, but you pulled her away. So there's that. But I think there's also the element of when everyone was getting pissy toward Jackie because she wasn't helping out, it's like Shauna was like, okay, Jackie, you need to start doing more, pulling your own weight, because she was always sticking up for Jackie and trying to help Jackie. And now it's like, not screw that, Jackie, you're on your own. She was outside trying to light a fire, and it's just like, Taissa was telling her, like, no, go talk to her. She's like, no. And then we got that dream sequence. So at first I was like, I didn't know if it was a dream or not, but she's like, come on inside. And at first I was like, this is weird. The moment she's like, oh, it's this hot chocolate, I was like, are you about to try and sacrifice it? Like, what's going to go on here? And then in that moment, everyone's gathered around. Like, the moment they were in that creepy circle, I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely a dream. The question is, whose nightmare is it? Is it Jackie's or is it Shauna's? And it turns out to be Jackie's. Especially because who does Jackie see? She sees Laura Lee, and it's like, wait, what? And then there was that guy in the back who was like, oh, so glad you can join us. I'm assuming he's the pilot guy that died, whose body they found in the cabin. I think it was him. So that was like her slipping into the afterlife, because sadly we find out it snowed and she died. She froze to death outside. And the moment Shauna came out, she was so upset, because it's like, right, if I hadn't been so stupid, like if I had just apologized to you like Taissa told me to, like asked me to, like just to go talk to you, like I could have. And that's the sad thing, because even in her head, Jackie was like, because Shauna was like, you know, you're my best friend, right? She's like, I know, like I'm glad we're, you know. So, but the thing is, it could also, the way the scene is designed, it could seem like it is Shauna's, but that could have been Jackie slipping off into death, or maybe that was kind of like this place kind of, waking you up with this somewhat knowledge of knowing something was wrong with Jackie. And it's sad that she froze to death. I was like, whoa. So once again, also confirms the dead body at the beginning definitely ain't Jackie's then. I was like, wow, that's heartbreaking. They're all going to take the L for that, because they're all the ones that decided, like, yes, Shauna had her blow up with her. At any point in time, any one of them could have been like, all right, like convinced Jackie to come back in, but no one did. You know? That's also the thing, too. Taissa's like, go talk to her. It's like, no, at any point in time, Taissa, you could have been like, nah, come back in, screw all this noise, like, don't be crazy, Jackie. Like, yes, no one saw that coming. It was just going to suddenly snow and she's going to freeze to death like that. But, wow. No wonder Shauna also, like, because Shauna's going to carry that guilt of like, cool. Also, that explains why Jeff also wasn't too like butthurt, because it's like, oh, because you didn't slaughter and sacrifice Jackie. The fact is that she actually, you didn't sacrifice her. She sadly died. It was like you guys had an argument. Once again, you were traumatized kids. Like, I'm not going to blame you for that. Once again, there's all the other stuff, but this one in particular, it's a whole thing of like, no, he was not going to blame her for the Jackie thing. But, because if he did, like, he's been sitting on his feelings for a couple years now, because he read that a while back, so he's known for a while, but that's a real kick in the teeth. But, tying it in, because we already got our answer at the end, though, in the past, we have Lottie going full-blown cult leader, and lo and behold, who are her first, I guess, apostles, I guess would kind of be the word, or followers, Van and Misty, who both are getting different things out of it. Van is lost, and this gives her an opportunity to, she believes in all of this, and it's just like, right, I'm gonna follow you, Lottie, because you know and you see so much more. So definitely going to lead to a divide between like those who are all about this and those who aren't, and eventually it's probably all going to become one. Because I've thrown it out there, and someone else had thrown it out there that maybe someone had actually left a comment in last week's review saying like maybe Lottie took Jackie's necklace, and that, because once again I brought it up. Like, the person who died at the beginning from that trap, who we saw them slit their throat and cook them, that person had dark hair. So that might be, like, it could, now in retrospect, it could be a Mari situation. Because, well, Mari was very, like, middle fingers to Jackie as well. But because now in the grand scheme of things, you're like, was it Lottie? I'm like, I don't think so. It could be, but it could be someone, like, present day, jumping around a little bit. It could be someone just present day using Lottie's name. But it's like, because at first you could be like, well, depending on if Van survived or not, which maybe she didn't, we see that Misty survived and she potentially is a follower of all this, so that could have still translated all these years later. But this is all about a cult following, something broke inside of Lottie and it broke inside of everyone, and they followed suit just for the sake of survival, because it's like, right, if you aren't with them, you are going to die. So some people agreed, like a Misty and Lottie, which Misty was just going like, nah, this makes me feel powerful. I feel like I finally belong somewhere. I'm being seen for the first time, and I'll follow you just because it makes her like, oh, I'm that bitch. Like she kind of finally has that energy again, whereas before she kind of had that, but it kind of dwindled. Now she gets to be special again, and she likes to be the center of attention. So I think she gets some of that back now, being a follower of like, right, I have someone looking at me, even if I'm serving someone, but I'm going to be seen as something special. I'm going to be seen as useful. And that's all it is, just Misty trying to be important in some shape or form, whether it's just in the grand scheme of like, oh, like in the grand scheme of what is this circle of life and these gods we're potentially worshiping, like I'm going to play my important role in the being a cog in this great machine, At least that's how I see it. But present day, circling back, we have Misty, and I love that she's like, oh my god, that lady died? Was it Gloria? Oh my god, she died? So young. She was 89. Yeah, I mean, she pretty much treated me like I was one of her daughters. I'm like, isn't this the same lady you were torturing like 2 different times earlier in this episode? You're terrible. Not unless that was a different lady, and that might have just been her being like, because I don't think, that might not have been one of her patients, that might have been someone else's, like, I forgot. It's like, yeah, this particular... No, because they were referenced to stroke and everything, so it's like, yeah. But it's like, I believe this is probably the same old lady, like, she was threatening her, like, in the first or second episode, and then later on, during Halloween, she unplugged her, like, machine just to scare the crap out of the kids and then plugged it back in. I was like, once again, Missy being the psycho she is, but, obviously I love Nat being like, wait, why are you getting all this stuff? She's like, oh, this was just an excuse. Like, couldn't we just go into a store? It's like, going to the store, that's how 12% of killers got caught, is because they bought, it's like, no, besides this is the really good stuff. They, like, clean the body and stuff like that. So, Nat, in exchange for getting Misty's help, it's like, cool, she has to go to the reunion now. So they go get rid of the body and stuff like that. And I love Misty's the only one making all the terrible jokes, being like, oh my God, who died? Oh wow, this guy was quite the bleeder, wasn't he? All right, so Shauna, I'm gonna need you to you're very good at this, so you need to slice and dice the body. It's like, what? It's like, no, I need you to cut him into pieces. You've always been good at this, so as we know firsthand, it's just like, yikes. So that is interesting, and Shauna just has to take it on the chin and just like, right, I've got to slice up my boyfriend who I murdered, because they're like, oh, right, you were the one who murdered him. She's like, why do we keep saying murder? It's not like I woke up and was like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come over here and I'm going to stab my boyfriend multiple times. So now they have to cut him into pieces and stuff like that. Showtime, and how very befitting, very Dexter-like, which is also befitting considering, obviously last week was the finale for Dexter New Blood, so just all very reciprocal in some regard. But Natalie and her did have the conversation, because Natalie's like, it's like, no, he couldn't have killed Travis because the night Travis died, he was with me. Like, you don't want to accept it, but the fact is, Travis killed himself. Like, after everything, we're all fucked up and we're all trying to find our way, trying to pretend like we're okay, but maybe it was just finally too much for Travis. And even Natalie was like, she thought it, she just never wanted to accept it. But it's like, it's easier to assume it was a grand conspiracy rather than after everything that went down, that all these years later that Travis just finally killed himself. So obviously at the same time, Taisa's dealing with the fact is that, hey, I got my election and I'm most likely going to lose. And obviously, what was the point of it? Because my marriage is kind of going down the toilet, which I didn't realize. Well, so her and Simone were already having their own issues regardless. Her circumstances, kind of her, split personality, dissociative personality disorder thing she's kind of got going on, kind of that trance she enters. That's just kind of the nail in the coffin. But at the end of the day, too, part of me is I thought because it's right, she sent Sammy and Simone away. I was like, couldn't that give her some credit? But it's later on, Simone's like, oh no, I'm going to be packing my stuff up while you don't want me there. And I'm like, because she was saying Taissa was like, oh, you don't want me there, which I was like, that's kind of interesting. I mean, like I said, maybe we missed a few steps there, but I guess she scared the crap out of Simone when she was like, I might hurt you, and it's right, until you get your shit together, we can't be around you, so we'll stay away and just avoid being, maybe that's how that just kind of gets allocated. So, but now they've got the body, they're going to bury part of the body, and it's wait, but what if some dog or some animal, it's it won't matter, it's the torso, they can't do anything with the torso, duh. So, well, what about the head and the hands? Because she's like, yeah, those are the ones we're going to need to get rid of. She's like, don't worry about it. So she goes to someone's funeral who's getting cremated. It's one of the ladies from the place, and I love, she's like, yeah, I was like a daughter to her. In that sense, I guess it kind of makes us like sisters. I'm like, Misty, you are so fucked up, and I love it so much. I love how fucked up she is. And so it's just kind of the lady, she was like, yeah, I mean, sometimes she has so much smile. It's until the strokes and stuff like that. But you can see the inner joy. It's I think you got the wrong person. It's oh, this is so-and-so. And she's like, yeah, I know. And it's just oh, she'll be missed and yada, yada, yada. And we see what it's assumably Adam's head and his hands being burned. So cremated. So that's been dealt with. So basically, Misty's just been waiting for her opportunity. So she's been using this situation as right, I'm just going to, we're going to pack up his stuff, and anyone who comes to find him or look for him is immediately going to think, oh, he's just, he just went on vacation or something like that, or he went on a trip. Well, aside from that, Misty was making other moves this episode too, when she finally lets Jessica go, and I was like, are you really? I'm like, you really gonna let her go? I was like, I don't know, man. Because this was after the fun and everything that they had at the reunion, which we'll get to in a second. But I want to talk about this first. I was like, are you really gonna let her? I was like, don't let her go, Misty, because she's like, oh, come on, you doing what you're doing, it's fine. Don't you know what I do for a living? It's pretty fucked up. I'm a fixer. I've done some pretty fucked up shit for some pretty rich people for a lot. So, whatever, like this, I won't say anything to anybody because it's, it's part of my job and everything. So, get your story out there, Misty. She's like, okay, and I'm like, Because at first when she started like unlocking, I'm like, are you going to attack her or something? It's like, because that seemed like your typical like horror movie like type of or thriller type of trope of like, oh, thank you, and the moment your back is turned, I'm going to attack you. It's like she didn't do that at any moment in time. Then there was the whole thing with the cigarettes, and I was like, what's going on? I was like, at any moment, I was like, there's no way Misty's just going to really just let you go. She's going to attack you, right? And then Jessica was like, I was like, are you going to, like, the moment you leave, call someone? Like, what are you going to do? And then the moment she starts smoking the cigarettes, and I was like, Misty fucking poisoned you, didn't she? I was like, that's all I needed, especially because she was outside waving. I was like, she fucking poisoned you. And in the moment she's driving, even at the end, Jessica's like, fucking bitch got me. I was like, well, she never had any intention to let you go. I'm curious, was it like, because truth be told is, if she did give up her vice, I wonder what Misty would have done. I guess Misty was like, right, like, if you can give up your vice, then that means like, oh, you can let bygone, like, maybe on some level Misty's like, if you can give up your cigarettes, that means you're not going to be so adherent to the past, so you'll be able to move on. But the fact is, it's like, well, because I guess Misty was like, oh, I'm trying to, like, help you. It's like, well, okay, here's your cigarettes, man. Because I guess she's like, if I knowing she messed with the cigarettes, she had to make an excuse to throw them away. Because she's like, if I didn't, then she knew, like, right, Jessica would probably think it's weird, like, oh, my cigarettes have been messed with. But if you throw them away, it's like, oh, no wonder they've been disheveled or whatever. You know, it's like, oh, dude, Misty, you're such an evil genius. But now we know, like, right, you were part of a cult. Maybe you still are. I mean, because what happens in the woods doesn't stay in the woods. So the question is, like, I don't know, because obviously there was things about like, oh, maybe Misty is a part of this. Like, even Natalie thought that at one point in time, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. But it could just be like, maybe that's why the Jessica thing happened, because it was like maybe she was ordered to, or maybe she thought like, oh, in the grand scheme of things, I'm doing what's necessary to protect herself and her friends, or what's really going on behind the scenes with this cult. But really quickly, we had them at the this kind of feeds into what I was bringing up before about Misty wanting to be special, being the center of attention, because she loved the reunion, because she was like, oh yeah, all these people were asking so many questions about us. We were like basically like celebrities, and she enjoys it. She loves that because she spent so long being ostracized by people. Now she was being accepted, and just like she's special now because it's like, oh, you're one of the people that survived. So she's kind of seen in a certain light now, that I think that's why she enjoys this so much. Because I think it speaks volumes, too, that amongst everyone, after disposing of Adam's body, like, everyone was in their respective homes. Like, Natalie was in her hotel, Shauna was in the shower, Thais had just got back, and she had, they were all kind of falling apart a little bit, except for Misty, because Misty's like fine and dandy with all this. Like, all of this is eating away at Shauna, Thaisa, and Natalie. Like, even though Natalie seems like she was stone-faced, like, it's still like the whole Travis thing is still rocking her to her core too. So it's like Misty's the only one taking this in stride, because Misty's like, oh man, I'm so good. Because whereas everyone else kind of gave into their darker inclinations out there, Misty found herself. It's like, ooh, this is the me I like. I like this version of me, and I'm never going back to that shy girl that everyone ignored, you know? I'm going to be somebody. So, but like I said, showing up at the reunion, and lo and behold, who we see? Allie. Because I think I might not have talked about it, but someone had commented maybe episode 2, or maybe it was episode 1, because I didn't pay attention to it like I should have, because I was just so focused on everything else, that we'd actually seen Allie at the beginning of the series, like present day, when someone, Jessica was asking questions about the Yellowjackets and stuff like that. Allie was one of the people being interviewed, because she was like, yeah, it could have been me. And it seems like Allie has been writing that for the past 25 years of like, yeah, can you believe this tragedy? It almost could have been me. Which, I mean, I get it. It's like, man, that is kind of wild. That's kind of crazy. But it seems like she's riding the high up of it. Because obviously she's talking about like, oh, the 10-year reunion? Who cares? 20? 25 is it. Oh, it's such a beautiful number. Because it seems like she's the one that orchestrates everything. I even love, it's like, boo! shut the fuck up, Doug. You're a grown man or something like that. But it's like she's the one that kind of orchestrated everything. I don't know if she was actually the main coordinator for this, but she's the one that kind of hosting the event, at least, so it seemed like she might be. But she's the one that kind of really dives into it, kind of like, because it's like, yeah, the tragedy that we went through, we can do some healing. I'm like, do you know how effed up and insensitive that seems? It's like, oh, what we went through. It's like, what do you mean what you went through? None of you went through it except for the people that were actually there that went through it. It seems insensitive to make it seem like, oh, how this affected all of us. I mean, I don't know. But I think that's the point, to make it seem like Allie, like, oh, she cares so much. But once again, Misty's definitely eating it up. Shauna, Taissa, and Nat were just so off, especially when it's like, cool, let's put up the photos of everyone that's dead. Ooh, here's a big long look at Jackie. Oh, there's Laura Lee. Hey, here's Van before she got mauled by a wolf. You know, so it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, look at the team. Back when we were so alive and happy. Hell, Natalie ran into Kevin, you know, and it's like she'd even brought up, oh, right, you and Travis were actually a lot alike. He's like, oh, in what way? That we both were in love with you? And he just wishes her the best. He hopes, like, I hope whatever it is that, you know, that helps you kind of move on, you're able to find it, you know? Because the sad thing is, it's like, right, she kind of ended up pushing him away, which I think is, you know, she was so focused on the Travis thing, she ended up pushing him away because of it, you know, which is interesting because her and Travis had that whole pushing each other away thing too. So it's a little interesting. It's happening now with Kevin, but it's just, she didn't want to let him in with everything. You know, it was a lot. And now, like I said, now she's even being like, right, Travis did kill himself. And, you know, processing and handling and trying to deal with that is a lot, which we'll get to in how Natalie ends up handling that. But once again, it's just like that awkward thing of just like, oh boy, oh, look at all these photos and just like how grandiose it's kind of made. It's just, it legitimately, I'm like, this feels gross. I get it. It's like, but it's not even like a memorial. It feels like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like, oh, let's remember. It just feels gross and just, it feels effed. But I don't know. Like, I guess it's like, would it be any different from like a memorial, like a 9/11 memorial or something? I don't know. It just, this particular incident, it just felt gross. It felt, once again, I know Allie's just like sucking up the attention from it. It's just kind of like, oh, once again, how we were all affected, even though it didn't happen to us, it happened to them. But something this magnitude could affect you, but it doesn't seem like, it's just like I said, it just feels like Allie's riding the coattails of like, man, that could have been me. Oh, you know, luckily, my leg got super jacked up, so I didn't get to go to the championships with them. So kind of worked out for me in the end. She even made sure to get a photo with everyone. So you're like, dude, she's definitely leaning into it a lot. Really quickly, I love that like Randy's talking to Sean and Sean looks at him. He's like, oh shit, he told you, didn't he? He's like, okay. He's like, come on, she's like, if you say anything to anybody, I will fucking kill you. Like, the fact is, you know, they won't find your body. And even if they did, it wouldn't matter. You'd be unrecognizable. He's like, so are you mad at me? And she's like, yes, Randy, I'm mad at you. I can't be mad at Jeff, so I have to be mad at you. But she goes, you are a good friend, though. So it was just interesting. He's just kind of like, okay. I was like, I love it. Because, like, Randy was kind of freaked out. He's like, yo, what if, because I guess, Jeff never told him that he told, because I guess it's like, right, if he told the others, if he had told Randy that Shauna knew, then he probably blabbed to the others about sorry and stuff. It's like, no, just keep your cool. They don't know about us, so let's leave it at that. But because Jackie is going, it's like, hey, let's get our king, Jeff, come up, and Shauna come up too, because it's what Jackie would want, which makes that sting even more. So they're dancing, and it's just like, cool, did you take care of that? And it's like, yep. It's like, oh, less details you know, the better. He's like, cool. He's like, well, I think we'll find our way past this, which we even see later on. They're on the couch playing a movie, and Callie's in like, oh, this is weird. And it's like, yeah, nah, like, we're just, come on, just sit down and have fun with us. It's like, oh yeah, this is fine and dandy, until, yeah, this artist Adam went missing. The fact is that someone immediately is calling it in like that. You're like, now, what is that about? Now, we're going to find out he's secretly married or something like that and has a wife and potentially a family, or maybe a significant other that called. Because it's like, been missing for like barely a day. Well, it's been longer probably because like I'd say it's only been a day because like Shauna killed him because she went through a lot of the day and went to Jeff and then immediately got Taissa and Nat involved, but who knows like how long has passed. Like he might have been sitting there maybe a couple days or something, maybe not. Like they never, it seemed like it was like still within the same day that Taissa and Natalie came back and Natalie going off to get Missy. It seemed like that was all within like probably a couple hours of itself, so it didn't seem like, so it seemed pretty quickly for someone to jump on that immediately like that. So that's why I'm like, what's up with that? I mean, because once again, we never found out who the hell he really was, because maybe he was working with someone of his own, or maybe he might have had some correlation to that church, considering like, well, he was already looking into Shauna, so once again, bumping into her wasn't an accident, or was it like he was trying to say that he looked into Shauna after he ran into her? It just seems super suspicious. So finding out who he really was is going to be pertinent to finding out, like, also like who put in it. Like, why would someone put him as missing and not think like, oh, he's on a trip or something? It's like, no, for someone to be like, no, he's missing. So like either like a couple days pass in between and we just didn't get to see that. It just seems so quick. So I'm interested by that. And both Jeff and Sean are just kind of like, huh. And Callie's kind of awkward because she's like, right, this is mom's boyfriend. He's going missing. Now, whether she is immediately thinking like, holy crap, did you guys kill him and do something? Or is it just kind of like, oh, this is awkward. I know, because she doesn't know that her dad knows. But she might have some inkling that her dad knows. I don't know. But it's like, oh, let's pretend like everything's okay. It's all behind us. And it's staring us right in the face what happened and what each one of us has done. We've all done some bad in this. He blackmailed his wife and her friends. It was mainly her friends, but in the process, you still blackmailed your wife. She murdered somebody. So, they've all kind of done some bad, so... then there's the whole thing with Taissa worried about the election, which turns out she won. It's like, oh, yay. Simone happens to come back home. And I was like, at first I was like, oh my God, we're going to find out Simone's behind all this. Like, if so, I was like, that would have come out of nowhere. I don't think there's no inkling that it would have actually been Simone. But in that moment, she finds some blood. I was like, wait, does Taissa still have the body? I'm like, wouldn't you have buried that at the park already? So I'm like, why would you? And she follows the blood. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then goes in there and it's a little sacrificial room where it's like, oh, the heart of the dog and its head. I was like, dude. And we're like cutting between like Simone screaming and then Taissa like winning and smiling. So it's a real like dissociative personality thing going on there. So she has once again what I brought up earlier about how we've never really seen how bad it could get, like that blacking out and sleepwalking thing. And I think this is our biggest inkling of what kind of potentially went down during that time. Plus, it's very cult-like with the whole Lottie situation too. So, once again, they all kind of got dragged into it in some shape or form, but it was just all about survival at some point, so they kind of went along with it. Lottie, Van maybe, and maybe Misty definitely leaned into it. Maybe Taissa eventually did too, just to stay closer to Van. She kind of leaned into it, maybe. I don't know. But sadly Natalie was close to killing herself, because it's like, right, because looking into this Travis thing, like, was the only thing that kind of kept her going, but knowing he left, especially because they made that promise to each other, so it's almost like, right, what's the point of keeping going? So she ended up, I'm sure, like, seeing those pictures of him and Javi, that was just all rough to deal with too, so it just made it stab even deeper, because she got home like after the next day and just started cleaning out everything. So, especially threw away the crime scene photos of it. It was kind of her finally like letting go, and letting go meant letting go in more ways than one. But before she could kill herself, some people bust in and jack her. And they've got pendants like the symbol they found in the woods back then. So it's like, and Susie calls her up. It's like, I don't know, who's this Lottie Matthews, and why is she the one that took the money out of Travis's account? I'm like, okay, there we go. because she was on my suspect list for a while. It seemed like they were definitely leaning into it to be Lottie. She was my number one suspect. Especially when Laura Lee died, I was like, because it was like between her and Laura Lee, but the moment Laura Lee died, I was like, yep, Lottie's number one on my suspect list. Once again, not unless Lottie is the one that died, but in retrospect, it could have been Mari. Maybe the whole having Jackie's necklace thing isn't necessarily someone stole it. It could be like a sacrificial thing of like, right, if you end up with the necklace, that means you've been chosen as like, the gods have chosen you as a sacrifice or something like that. Maybe that's what's supposed to be. That's why I'm like, well, there's a few, if it's not Lottie, which once again, it could have been the group turning against Lottie because, oh, you're so batshit crazy, we got to kill you, we can't let you run things, and they kind of took over and they thought this was all said and done because Lottie was dead. Or they thought, well, it's all said and done because we survived because of all this, so we'll never speak about it again. Let's go back to normal life. Or it could just be that, once again, it could be Mari. That, like I said, it could just be like a sacrificial thing of either Mari took the necklace and no one knew, or two, it's just like, right, you chosen sacrifice and it's Mari that ends up being killed because she has brunette hair as well, so. I thought that was an interesting development. To see that things have kind of turned out this way. So, like I said, this is a great finale, great place to lead things off, present day and in the past. Also kind of confirms probably like Travis most definitely didn't kill himself because their timing was interesting. They knew to show it when they did. I'm sure it's just because Susie was like, nah, they're like, feels like someone's watching me. So they were keeping an eye on Natalie the entire time. That's why they were keeping an eye. Well, Susie probably triggered them by like doing her own investigating, but Natalie was already doing that as well, so they probably saw that she was about to kill herself. Once again, maybe Missy's been giving quote-unquote Lottie. I'm saying that because if it's Lottie, it's still true, but if it's not Lottie, we'll keep the quotes around it until we find out potentially who it really is. But maybe Misty's been giving updates because we know she at the very least was spying on Natalie. And she was one of the first people to jump on this Lottie bandwagon back in the day. So who's to say she still isn't a part of it? Maybe she didn't kill Travis, but she knows a lot more than she's like. Well, because Jessica is the one. Because I doubt it because Jessica's the one that gave her the lead and she passed that lead on to Natalie. That could have been a red herring, but I don't think so. Like, I feel like if that was the case, like Misty would have told Natalie in the first place. So she was about it back in the day, but I don't think she's about it now. Like, I think she's detached from all of this, so. I wonder what she's trying to draw well, because the thing is, they were trying to sacrifice Travis all those years ago, but probably Natalie nipped that in the bud. As long as Natalie was around, like, that was never going to happen. So it could be a thing of your sacrifice was owed. Like, you should have died all those years ago because you were supposed to be sacrificed, and now the woods or whatever it is or whoever it is they're praying to has been calling for you for the past few years, and cause who knows, maybe if it is Lottie, like I said, the real Lottie and not just someone using her name, it could be that she has been on medication for these past couple years and eventually, like, she slipped off her medication. Hell, for all we know, she could have started her own little church. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be like a commentary on, well, I won't say specifically. There's been a lot of cult stuff lately. I was about to reference a specific church. I'm like, no, I'm not about to open that can of worms of a certain church. But definitely cults have been a big thing lately. There's been plenty of documentaries and about real world stuff about cults and stuff that maybe she started her own quote unquote church when in actuality it's a cult. Like I said, real world stuff we won't really get into here, but, you know, so maybe there's something there, but either way, I'm so excited to see where the hell all of this takes us going forward. Like I brought up last episode, the show got renewed for a second season a couple weeks ago, and I'm so excited because I'm like, dude, give me season 2 now. I gotta see where this goes. This show has been great. It's been a hell of a ride. And it's kind of a bummer that we're going to be waiting a while before we get to season 2. But I'm so damn excited to see where season 2 takes us, where the past stuff takes us. Like I said, I think we're definitely going to get like an Arrow type of thing of like the Arrow/Lost, where it's like it's going to be a point in the series where when they eventually get rescued and present day will collide. So probably like just where we're finding out the truth, everything coming to its conclusion. Present day will probably be when everyone gets rescued at the end of the past stuff. So that'll probably be kind of how, because they've handled that kind of like Lost did, and they kind of did like that with Arrow as well. So I'm wondering if like it's all going to kind of meet in the middle type of thing. I don't know. We'll see, because you never know. They could always end up structuring this a little bit differently going forward. I'm assuming this element of the past and present is going to continue, just because both sides of the story are so necessary and important for the whole story, well, for the story as a whole. But you never know how they'll structure it. They might structure it a tiny bit differently going forward. I would assume it's going to be exactly the same, but we'll see. I cannot wait for season 2. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.